Welcome back to Arsenal Pass Limited Time Only, Episode 2, with me, your host, Hayden Dale, one half of Arsenal Pass. This is a podcast focused on all things limited in the game of Flesh and Blood, where each and every week I bring on a different guest, a high-level limited player from the Flesh and Blood TCG, of course, to talk all things draft, sealed, level ups, and just share their expertise in the limited side of Flesh and Blood. And just like the name suggests, this is limited time only. This is a 10 episode run for season 1, which is the Outsiders season of Limited. Episode 1, I had Yuanji Lee join me to talk all things pre-release primer, where we broke it down. So I hope everyone had an amazing time at your pre-release over the weekend. Outsiders looks like it's going to be a fantastic set. I had a great time at my pre-release. Ended up playing 3 pre-releases over the weekend. And we don't, unfortunately, in this episode get to talk too much about my seal pools from the weekend, as we really focus in on my guest who had a great time at pre-release, a dominant time at pre-release, you might say, and is a forefront of the limited space in the Southern Hemisphere, I would say. But I did get to play mostly Assassin, a little bit of Riptide, and I gotta say, I had a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to this weekend. Friday is the release of Outsiders, so draft is on the horizon. We're going to be talking a little bit of draft in this episode, our early thoughts on the draft format, as well as a look ahead to what might happen as draft unfolds. Now, I myself will be drafting a lot this coming weekend. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm looking to get in a draft every single day if I can, and so I can share my thoughts and views with you on the Limited Time Only podcast right here next week. Now, my guest this week is a national champion, a current national champion, someone who took my national championship title. So, you might think we have a bit of beef, but we're very good friends. Nick Butcher, who is a very successful pro player as well. He's been in every single pro tour and the World Championships last year, is a top 8er, multiple top 8 calling. He's got 3 top 8 callings to his name at this point, and is someone that I really respect as one of the best players in the Southern Hemisphere, and someone that I talk to about a lot when it comes to limited in Flesh and Blood. We do a lot of drafting together. We theorycraft on a lot of things in the past when it comes to limited in this game, and someone who I think just has a real knack for what it is to pick up a format really quickly. So I wanted to get him on the podcast pretty early. So week 2, my guest is Nick Butcher. Now, I do want to say a massive thank you to everyone who watched episode and listened to episode 1 of Limited Time Only with Yuanji Lee. We had an amazing response, a lot of views and downloads of the pod. So I just want to say a massive thank you. We're going to continue to pump out great limited content, be at the forefront of I hope, limited content in Flesh and Blood. We've got some amazing guests lined up. We've got some European guests. We've got some guests from Asia. We've got some guests from New Zealand, Australia, America, and all around the world to share the different sort of perspectives of some of the best players around the world. You can check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all those things, as well as right here on YouTube, where you do get video access to what we're putting up. Now, I do want to say, with this episode that we're doing with Nick Butcher as well, we did also record a bit of a sealed opening of Outsiders to talk through kind of really, especially how Nick goes about building a sealed pool in this format. Now, Nick had a lot of success this weekend. As I say, he picks things up really quickly when it comes to new limited formats. I don't think he dropped a game over the weekend. The man is a machine. He beat me in our 3rd pre-release on the weekend, which was we had a fantastic game that went right down to the wire. But yes, as I say, go and check out that video, sealed pool opening, and what sort of Nick looks at when he puts together a sealed pool for a format like Outsiders, the brand new format in Flesh and Blood. So let's get into it and bring in Nick Butcher to the pod. All right, joining us on the pod for episode 2 of Limited Time Only is Nick Butcher, the one and only. Nick, welcome to Limited Time Only. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Mom.
Nick, if you're not familiar with Nick, a current Australian national champion, but I did say that I would let Nick introduce himself. So Nick, for those that don't know who you are, don't know about your exploits in Flesh and Blood, and just all things Nick Butcher, why don't you tell people about yourself and what you do in this game?
Nothing much to say about me. My nickname is Teddy, and right now me and my partner Chuck are traveling to the Ashcliffe Hospital for the criminally insane on Shutter Island, and we're going to investigate the disappearance of Rachel Solando.
Now, that is one of my favorite movies, so I'm glad you started with I'll give you starting with that quote, to be honest. If you had to say, is that your favorite movie?
I'm a big fan of Good Will Hunting. I'm a big fan of Leo in general. I know he's on in Good Will Hunting, but in general, that would come to mind as my favorite right now, which is exciting because Ben Affleck and Matt Damon are doing another movie together. Yeah.
There you have it. We'll go back onto Flesh and Blood for a little bit at least. Of course, this past weekend, we've just been playing pre-release for Outsiders. Nick, me and you got to actually play a game of Outsiders Sealed on Sunday. It was like second round of the last Sealed pre-release of the weekend, which was lots of fun. I know you played 3
Yeah.
Sealeds over the weekend. I just want to ask you first of all, like, how did you find the format? You've played Flesh and Blood since basically the start. Now you've played Sealed in a lot of formats, including Welcome to Wraith, Arcane Rising, Monarch, Tales of Aria, even.
Yep.
What do you think of this format?
I love it as a casual thing. When it comes to competitive, who knows what could happen when you actually have to have serious stakes. But for a casual event, and especially with the upcoming skirmish season, I'm hyped, and I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think the one thing that people have been like, it all seems pretty positive. That's kind of been my takeaway from looking at Fab Twitter and hearing people over the weekend. People were generally having a lot of fun. I know you were at the Uprising World Premiere, and by about round 5, I think people were done with playing Uprising Sealed. The format was pretty solved by about round 5 of that World Premiere, I think. So this
Yep.
feels like it's got a whole different kind of vibe to it, right? There's a lot more depth to this. Would you agree? I said that to some friends, I think this is the deepest Sealed format that we've had by far, actually.
Yeah, I think I agree. To be honest, people will just say that it's all about piles, but there's a lot of intricacies to things like that as well. So I'm excited for people to learn about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in this pod. So we're going to get into all things, including, the term fatigue by damage as opposed to fatigue by blocking, which Nick is also a big fan of discussing. So what about the Sealed pre-release over the weekend? How did you go? What did you play over the 3 Sealeds? We are going to look at some pools as well, including yours and one of mine. But just for everyone out there, how did the pre-release go for yourself?
Yeah, they were fun. That's the most important thing, right? Like, honestly, as long as you had a good time, that was all that mattered at these events. And I was happy playing against a 30 people event, a 20-person event, another 20-person event, and so like that's the most important thing is just having a good time. And unfortunately, I didn't pull anything good, so that was a downer. But it is what it is.
That's true. I mean, you did pull 3 Cold Foil Azuris technically. That
True.
by winning
True.
3 sealed events, but
Yeah.
nothing good. I got a legendary on Sunday, and then Nick still beat me, so I feel like I won, but I also lost.
But that's what made it fun. I had to play around flick knives.
You did
which
have to
was
play
fun.
around flick knives. That was a good game. We had a great sealed game actually in round 2 of our pro list. One question I'll ask you: we're going to get into some outsiders tips on sealed, and there's a lot of things coming out with skirmish season. But one thing I want to ask you is: do you think the outsiders sealed could be repurposed for more than just a skirmish season? So skirmish season 6 will feature sealed and draft if you're not familiar. But could you see this as being a ProQuest format, a calling format, even a Road to Nationals format?
Yes and no. So it's easy to say because perhaps me, you, other people are looking through rose tinted glasses where it was fun. And so it would be fun to translate that to a calling event. But I don't think the format was balanced around sealed. And so I don't think it's going to happen. But I would play a sealed event with stakes. Absolutely. It's just, would they want to do that? Is going super deep make it better or does it make it worse? And so, like, I think it's safe just to make it a more casual based event, which is fine. Like, I think there should just be casual level formats. So I'm happy with both, but I don't want someone to play a calling, get like a horrendous deck, and you just can't do anything, which could happen, right? If it's not balanced completely towards the sealed format.
Yeah, and it's good to finally have a seal format that is really, I think you can utilize for casual level formats. And I personally think Limited should be a format that can bring players into the game because it's super accessible. You don't have to have a deck to play. You can just rock up with your $30 or whatever for entry and play your sealed event at locals or at a skirmish, for instance, or whatever it might be. And that should be a good way to get players into the game. And I don't think we've quite had that because of Uprising and Tales for sealed weren't particularly great formats, to be honest, but this feels like a lot more balanced format that you can have at that level. And maybe it doesn't go beyond that. I mean, I think I could see this at a calling level, but maybe that wouldn't be the right decision. But yeah, I think the main thing for me, the big takeaway is that we've got a sealed format that I feel comfortable bringing new players into.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because to me, Arcane to Uprising were just abysmal sealed formats. Like, but anyway, I digress. And even WTR is just, even then, it's just you look back and it's like, it's okay,
I've played some WTR since, obviously we did the draft events with Farewell to Wraith, but I've actually played a couple of sealed since then. And yeah, the format isn't all that I remember it to be. And this is definitely, I think, even a step up on that, which is great. Why don't we jump into, I guess, first part of the pod, which is how to score wins in Outsiders Sealed. Outside of Sealed as a format, obviously you did it. You didn't drop a single game over the
Hmm.
sealed. So clearly that just means that the pre-release is it's everything. If you win a sealed, that's actually all that matters, right, Nick?
It may make you the best player in the world.
Surely. I love the discourse. Like Brendan Patrick, is Arsenal Pass fame, shouted out on Twitter, said everyone on my Twitter feed is 5-0 and 4ing their seals. I don't understand. Everyone's
And,
winning.
he, and here I am going 13-0 and saying, man, the real winners are the people that pulled legendaries and marbles and stuff.
I feel
They're
like
the
I
real
won when I
winners of
pulled
the
that
weekend.
legendary.
Yeah, there you go. So what does that tell you?
Let's talk about some tips for deck construction first of all. I think this is a really important part of Outsiders Sealed in particular. I mean, it's important for every part of, I think, Sealed in this game is how you construct your deck. But I have some things I want to ask you about because I know you messed around with like your pools. You looked at a few different options. You saw other people's pools over the weekend.
Yep.
And I think the first thing to get out of the way is the overwhelming majority of people and people who are winning events, or I guess this is anecdotal, but we saw this in our meta as well. Like people were defaulting to Assassin as the way to,
Yep.
by sort of late Saturday, Sunday, the sort of second and third pre-release events, people were playing, for lack of a better term, Assassin piles. They're playing more than 30 cards, which I think is actually just generally correct and sealed anyway. But what do you think the viability of Katsu, Benji, and Azalea? Because I did not see a lot of those heroes. I did not see those heroes have success. I did not see my pools really ever lean towards those. And I saw a lot of people's pools not leaning towards those. So do you think they're viable and sealed?
No, not particularly. So that's the reason why the sealed format is probably not based for balancing, or why the company didn't base towards sealed at all. Because things like Benji and Katsu and sealed, like if you look at your pool, like for my 3 pools, it wasn't even close to playing any of those heroes. They require so much. So Benji and Katsu require a lot of zero cost blues. They require combinations of cards, and they don't have standalone strong cards. And most of them are in rare. Like spinning wheel kicks are rare. And I think I pulled 1 Twin Twisters in red. Sorry, 1 Twin Twisters red in all my pools. So like, it's very unlikely you're going to get multiples of those kinds of cards, and it's just very difficult, especially because you have Kodachis, but all your cards block for 2, which is the reason why Azalea, Katsu, and Minji are not as strong as things like Riptide, which can fatigue you by damage, or the Assassin classes, because you can just throw a pile of block 3s together and call it a day.
Yeah, if you are going to play one of the ninja heroes, you are going to have less cards that defend for 3 because your class cards, majority of them defend for 2. So you're already in a tougher position, and then you need the zero cost to play your Kodachis, like you say. And then so it's not to say that you can't have a good Katsu or Benji deck. I saw a couple of polls that people had posted online, and some people did have strong Katsu and Benji decks, but my kind of estimate is it's around, like, honestly, like I think if you're in a room of like 30 or 40 people, there's going to be 1 or 2 ninja pools that are probably correct to play ninja. I think it's, if that, probably 1 in 30, 40. I think it's really hard to pull together a really strong ninja pool in this format.
Yeah, and I think it wouldn't be Benji if it was that strong. I think it would
Maybe
just be a Katsu deck.
because the combo cards probably take you over the top,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And you can just not block them out and just get more damage
Hmm.
than they can defend/deal back.
Yeah, playing a little bit like Fi in Uprising. You're just playing just mono,
Yep.
like head jabs and attacks and power through in sort of 5 or 6 turns before you run out of gas.
Yeah, except Katsu doesn't have Lava Burst or 9 different kinds of head jabs, so a bit difficult.
Well, and Ancestry is kind of like Lava Burst if you have the cards to go with it.
That's a rare.
True. What about Azalea? I think my kind of big takeaway on Azalea is that Riptide's hero ability is just too important in this format.
It's way better. It's way better as well, I think. Yeah, it's too unreliable to get enough cards in your pool to look at the top card of your deck to consistently get a Dominated Arrow off, and then you're just sacrificing a better hero text at that point to go for it.
Yep. Yeah, I completely agree. That was my experience. I think I saw a couple of people trying to play Azalea, and they just didn't have the card economy because they were having to play more awkward hands, having to block more because they couldn't utilize. The good thing about Riptide as well, one of the most powerful things about their hero ability, and when I say hero ability, I'm talking about this like free reload, this put a card face down to your arsenal, is that it means that you then get to, first of all, not pay a resource to use your bow, and then also get to use your bow for an extra damage with the aim counter, which is actually really, really massive, and that just gives you more opportunities to play your whole hand out. Like you play a card from hand, at least you put a card into your arsenal. If you even have the go again arrow, you can even use your bow for another arrow. Like it just gives you so much more options playing Riptide as opposed to Azalea. So I would really struggle to see an Azalea pool, I think, in this format, unless you just randomly have like the god amount of pumps and like the best red arrows and you just dominate people for days and just kill them.
Yeah, and even then, you still can only play one arrow per turn off Azalea, off the bow. So like you can't even play multiple arrows. It's
Yeah.
like Falcon Wing. Unless you can't even use Falcon Wing.
You need to have it in Arsenal to start with. I think you, and then you need to, yeah, well, exactly. You can't even get the
It's
aim
just
count on it.
hoops.
So,
Yeah, the other thing, it's hoops as well. It's just
yeah.
a
So I guess the question is, let's go back to some ranges. I think we're kind of putting Azalea to the side for the reasons we've talked about. We think Riptide is the more dominant, and this is what Yuanji talked about on episode 1 last week. We talked about, he really said that he thought Riptide was going to be the way to go with Assassin. I said, I bet with Ranger. And I said, maybe Azalea's good. I'm clearly wrong. Would you play Riptide? You know, I know you played Assassin across the 3. You swap between Arachne and Azuri, but would you play Riptide in this seal format? Or would you just default to Assassin?
Absolutely. The only problem with Riptide is that you do need a specific set of cards, right? Like you do need pump spells, you do need arrows, and you're not always spoiled for choices with those kinds of cards. But so it's very strong, but you do need the pool for it as well.
So,
Whereas,
let's just talk about the quick. What does a good Riptide deck look like then? Do you think?
definitely the pump spells,
The lace widths, the scout the
yep,
peripheries.
yep, they're very strong. I love Scout the Periphery. That card's a fantastic card. Falcon Wing is a very, very strong card, as well as even things like Seek Horizon, very good card in that deck. Ravenous Rabble, I was very underwhelmed with Ravenous Rabble, but if you're playing all these Scout the Peripheries, maybe there's more consistency with it. But all those kinds of cards, and then obviously Red Arrows. You know, I don't know. I'm not good with the names of cards, so the arrow that gives a blood rot pox is very strong. All of them actually pretty decent. The frailty one is very good as well. So if you can get pump spells and get a consistent 10 attack on hit effect to make them block with all of their cards, then they're just going to end up running out of cards in deck because you have too many on hits for them to deal with.
Yep. So my last round of round 5 of my second sealed on Saturday, I played into a Azuri pile. I think he was running like 40 cards ish, 41 cards. And we basically got to fatigue where he was going to fatigue. I ended up being able to kill him with a trap, actually, at instant speed. But he was going to fatigue if not for that. Because, yeah, you present damage and you actually fatigue them by forcing them to have to use their cards on defense. Even though they have the daggers, you just get better card economy with these great red arrows. I think my kind of takeaway was that I really think you need minimum 6 red arrows and probably maybe a good way to recur it, like maybe you got lucky and opened a Codex of Frailty or something like that. But I think you really need around like 6 red arrows and at least 4 or 5 of them be good, or at least some good yellow ones like the Blood Rot Pox arrow, like the Withering Shot, things like that to make it so that you have enough damage density. And then those good generics. A lot of the time you're just playing like 2-card hands. You just block with 2 cards and you just present a threat with some of the red generics and take 2 or 3 cards from your opponent. It's still really, really good.
Yeah. Oh, another insane card, which we might get into like in the later stages of this thing with over and under cards. It's not a cycle, but like it's a blue, and then when they block with a blue, if it has an aim counter, I think the blues get -1 when they block.
Blue tail, Fletcher yellow tail, red tail. Yeah,
crazy late game. That card is crazy because then they just have blues left in their deck, and you have to just pitch it because it's a blue, and they just cannot do anything to that. It's nutty.
Yeah, Fletcher Blue Tail is like maybe better than Fletcher Red Tail. It's like
it's just such a good late game card. It's sort of like Hurl in a way where like it's just a nuts late game inevitability card.
Yeah, I think it's like it's in draft it might be a little bit less impactful. I don't know. We don't know yet how second cycle is going to play, but in sealed and you're playing Ranger, people are going to try and fatigue you. You're going to go to second cycle. That card has so much value. It's ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
Let's. Anything else to say about kind of what a good Riptide deck looks like? I think those generic. Seek Horizon was the overperformer for me in Riptide by a large amount, I would say.
Yeah, that card's amazing
because of the hero ability.
Yeah, 4-card hand, 1-card hand. It's just fantastic.
The last card I'll shout out for Riptide in particular is the chest equipment. So Tunic or Tunic by far is the best one. It's very bad Tunic because you activate the hero ability with something like Seek Horizon, you put your 1-cost arrow, and then you can play it straight out. So you can play like a 3-card 9 damage hand, which is really, really gas. Or you can also play Silken Gear, and that's also really good. But those chest equipments are just great in general.
Yeah, especially with Death Touch, which is definitely the best card.
Agree. So defaulting to Azuri Arachne, do you think that's going to be just the majority correct decision? Like, is it more a case of now when you sit down to build your sealed deck, the first thing you do is rule out Katsu, rule out Ranger, and then just go to your Assassin pool? Is that kind of the way to do it?
Yeah, I think so. It's not hard to rule out Ranger. Another important thing about piles is that on a basic level, it's very easy just to put a pile together, attack with daggers. Whereas when you're playing Riptide, you actively have to think and memorize pitch stacks. And like, listen, if you're playing for fun, cool, that's awesome, right? Like, play whatever you like. Let's not say never play these things. You play what you enjoy playing. But like, if you want to like play full competitive, try hard, win your skirmishes, it's very hard to like play a perfect Riptide games into 5 fatigue decks or 6 fatigue decks every single round. So you should that's a thing that you should remember when entering these events with Riptide. It's very difficult to play.
Yep. Shout out to the tall Timmy. We played in round 4 yesterday, and he sat down and said, I'm so exhausted from playing. He was playing Riptide. I'm so exhausted from all 3 of my rounds so far going to time against Azuri piles effectively. He won. He was 3-0, or he was 3-0. He got the pair down into me. He was 3-0 at the time. So shout out to the tall Timmy. But yeah, it's definitely taxing, but it's fun.
Yeah.
I will say.
Yep, absolutely.
How many cards to play? That's the next question. Obviously people started the weekend. Majority of people probably playing 30, 31, 32 cards. By the end of the weekend, I saw people playing 42 cards. Like, what is the right number of cards to play in your outside of sealed deck?
If you're playing I think Riptide should just play most of the cards when he's playing into most matchups, just because he does have such a high damage output and he's prone to fatigue. So playing more cards in your deck, even bad blues. Maybe that's the difference. Attacking with that blue when they have no cards in deck or 1 card in deck, and they're only attacking with the weapon, is enough for you against fatigue. So I'd say a lot of cards for Riptide. With Assassin, I'd like to think you play twice as many cards as you have block 3s. So if 50% of your deck is block 3s, that's probably a good number. Any more than that, you're just going to have like a cloggy block 2 hands that you're just not going to be able to do anything, and then they're going to be able to just... It doesn't matter. If your card quality isn't at least decent, like I'm not going to play a blue Rabble just because it's a blue, and that means it's going to be my 47th card, It just doesn't... It's not going to do anything, so I'd rather just have good card quality more than anything. So I was playing 40 with 20... block 3s, or like I was playing 38, I think, with 18 or 19 block 3s. That's just the rule I went with. I don't know if that's real or not. I just made it up in my head, but like it worked out. So
yeah, I think there's a really good. So I want to go back and compare those 2 examples that you've just given, because I think the way I was seeing this is that Riptide, you don't have a weapon, right? So you need your cards in the late game to be able to present damage, even if they're blues. Blue cut down to size. They'll just call that card's like great in the late game.
Fantastic, yeah.
It's 2 for 4. It's actually really good in the in game, because you're just fighting for just trying to push damage. That's going to force your opponent to block, and they're going to have a bunch of these blue 2 blocks and stuff in their deck. Now the difference with Arachne, obviously, is that you have access to these daggers, so you can turn your blues into dagger attacks, and they're not. It can be a little bit awkward. Obviously, they're not quite Kadachis, but they are very, very good. So you do get a bit more damage economy through your daggers. And if you start to, like Nick's saying, pull your deck with a bunch of bad cards that are close to unplayable, really fringe cards, you're going to get these awkward hands, and you're probably not even going to get down to fatigue in a lot of these Assassin mirrors, because you've just died because you just had so many awkward hands that didn't do enough damage, or you had to block with all these bad 2 blocks, and you just leaked too much that you actually just died before you even get to that in-game state. So it's a balancing act. I kind of see it like a bit of a curve. As you go up the curve, adding cards, you're probably in the right direction as you're adding good cards. You get to a point where you start to add bad cards to your deck, and it starts to, your deck power level starts to plummet off the other side as well, or how strong your deck is.
Yeah, there's such a thin margin between fatiguing and fatiguing by damage. Like, you have to very much balance that, like, the perfect balance,
Yeah, do you want to... So we've talked about this already. We've kind of alluded to this fatiguing by damage and fatiguing. Do you want to try and explain kind of to people what the difference is? Like, what is fatigue by damage when we say that?
Yeah, so the simplest way to do it is using Guardian as an example in constructed or whatever format that you enjoy. If I keep playing red attacks that stop your turn, and you have to keep blocking with a bunch of cards from your hand, I'm pitching multiple cards and you're blocking with more than the cards that I'm attacking you with. So if I keep presenting you with on hits that you keep having to block, then I'm just going to get more and more cards in my deck, and you're going to lose more and more cards and threats in your deck. So if I just keep attacking with Spinal Crush or Crippling Crush or Terror Thunder over and over again, and you have to keep blocking with cards and losing cards from your deck, I'm only losing one card. You're losing three cards to stop my on hit because this is stopping you from playing. You're eventually going to run out of cards in your deck, and then you just lose, which is what fatigue by damage is, where you've had to just keep blocking because I've just presented too much damage and value for you to deal with.
Yeah, you're effectively losing. You're forcing by fatiguing your opponent via damage. You're forcing them to block with good cards because you're presenting damage. So
Yeah.
let's just say on a average deck in this format, say we've decided to both play 36 cards in a deck. We're playing assassin and taking away daggers. So not talking about the dagger attacks, but let's say we both have about 120 damage in our deck, right? From attack actions. Let's just kind of say it could be more, could be less. That's not an accurate scientific number. I'm just giving you a number. And I attack into Nick, and I force him with my death touches and some really good on-hit effects to start to defend. And he has to defend with like a red spring load or maybe his red death touch. All of a sudden, if he's blocked with those two cards, that's 11 damage gone from his deck just to block out my 6 damage. So that's kind of what happens. You're fatiguing by damage by forcing your opponent to have to use their good damage cards to defend yours, and you're getting better economy out of your cards, better damage rate out of your cards. And in the end game, that really matters when you get down to the bottom of your deck. Maybe you have a life lead because of this, because they chose to try and save some red cards, or maybe you have like an actual just density of card lead and good card lead because of this, and they just have only blues that they've been pitching to play cards, and they've had to block and attack with the rest of their good red cards. Maybe you got to pitch a couple of yellows or reds or something. So that's kind of what it looks like, as opposed to fatiguing by blocking, which is the traditional way you'll see with a lot of these fatigue guardians into in previous formats. And so like Ultim into something like Briar, where it was just block, 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 and you just run them out of threats by trading all your cards on the defensive side. But you can't do that in this format because so many cards defend for 2. Like Nick just said, trying to play 2-to-1 ratio or 1-to-1 ratio rather on 2 blocks to 3 blocks. That's a really good number, but there's so many 2 blocks in this format. There's so many awkward breakpoints. Spider's Bites really hamper a lot of good defending because they take away that opportunity to turn cards into the defensive value.
Yeah, that's why chaff, like playing too many cards, doesn't actually help you in a mirror match, because if you just have 4 blue attack actions and they come in with the Spider's Bite, you're just going to block with one of those cards anyway because your hand does nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you just lose the tempo that way, and then your cards in deck are redundant because they didn't do anything and then you have to block with them anyway versus the Spider's Bite.
So I had this question. My next kind of question is like, what does good look like? And I wanted to talk about that. Where's kind of the cutoff point? Let's just say if we're playing Azuri or Arachne, we've decided, we've got a reasonable ranger pool. We've done the first thing. We've ruled out Katsu, we've ruled out Benji, we've ruled out our rangers because we just don't have the threat density. What does good look like? Like, what are the cards that you are on the fringe of like playing or not playing? Like, I'll give the kind of first example. Like a card like Yellow Plunge to me is like, that's a class card, or a hybrid card, rather, but not a card I'm particularly excited about, for instance. Like, it's a 2 block, it's 2 damage on offense. Like, that's not a card I'm particularly excited about.
What I'm not good with names of cards.
Oh, sorry,
so
that's the 1 cost go again. If it hits, your next dagger gets +1 attack.
Oh, okay. Yeah, cool. Yeah, no, I don't want that one in anything but red, realistically.
Yep.
Blue, maybe, just for late game, but meh.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I see that's the line, is like when I'm starting to get to the point where cards are underrate on both offense and defense, like, and they don't provide me with a special effect. And when I say special effect, it's something that could. So like yellow, I want to call it Moment's Peace. Is that what it's called? Peace of Mind.
Peace of Mind.
Moment's Peace is from Magic. Peace of Mind. That card is like, that's on the fringe for me because I'm like, okay, some matchups I probably want that. Some matchups I don't. Like probably into Ninja, I might particularly not want that because it's a little bit like I'm having to pay a blue to get 3 damage, unless I have a Seeker's Equipment, in which case I'm like more keen to play that. Whereas on the other hand, I'm like red Peace of Mind. I'm playing all those in every matchup.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think you play as many Peace of Minds as Seeker's Equipment, if that's like a good way that I put it. If I have 2 Seeker's Equipment, I'll play 2 Peace of Mind because then I get the value off the yellow one. And Seeker's Equipment are way better than Blade Break against the mirror match because the piercing on the weapons. So you can pitch one, stop their weapon attack, they come with another attack, you Peace of Mind it, and then that's just super value.
It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I think that is kind of what it looks like. What about number of blues? Let's talk about Ranger first because I have a bit of experience with this. I think you don't actually need that many blues in Ranger. I think your blue class cards are going to really overperform. They're going to block well in the late game, and you get to play your generics and things like that. But I don't think you need to be too worried about blues. You can actually play reasonably well off yellows, especially if you have zero cost arrows, and also if you're just playing generics in the mid game. I think you can actually just get away with a lot of yellows. So like, if you're playing a 40 card Riptide deck, I think honestly like 12 blues is fine. But what about it? Maybe you disagree, Nick, but I was going to ask, what about Assassin as well?
I was playing around 12 blues in Assassin with 40 cards. I think it's perfectly fine. Like you only need 1, 2 blues, even 0 blues some turns, because you can just block them a little bit, come in with a 0 for 3 or a virulent touch from Arsenal, or just yeah, nothing. You don't need to do anything special really.
Yeah, and sometimes you actually just pitch the yellows to Dagger. You don't need to, especially if you
Yeah.
have like a lot of zero costs, or you're not going to have actually value from that one resource with the blue. That's kind of something I found. I thought you wanted a lot of blues in Assassin, something that me and Yuanji talked about last week for Spider's Bites, but actually it's actually not often that relevant unless you have cards like Spring Load or Death Touch out of Arsenal, these kind of one costs, which are actually pretty premium, and you're not going to have that many. You're going to have more. You're going to have zero costs as well. And that's why I love a card like Feisty Locals. Pitch yellow and then come in with your Feisty Locals. Like something like that is great. So yeah, a lot of options.
Especially because double Spider's Biting is pretty redundant, because they'll just block the second Spider's Bite and negate the first one. So it's kind of
Yeah, double Spider's Bite's only really relevant in late game situations and fatigue, really.
Yeah.
It came up a lot less than I thought, to be honest. Like holding 2 blues to be able to do that, then play a 2-cost generic, you're often better just like blocking with one card, just playing the 2-cost generic, to be honest.
Yeah.
Any other questions, I guess, for outsiders? I mean, what about like... Okay, let's talk about defensive power. You talked about playing like a 1-to-1 ratio as kind of the thing you look for in your assassin decks in particular. How important are these defense reactions? Like my kind of takeaway, we talked about this off mic in the last couple of days, but the defense reactions just overperformed in this format.
Oh, they're amazing. The fact that they just block 3 as well is an instant speed, just like kind of get your opponent if they overcommit to something, is just super strong. I love them a lot, especially the frailty one, because it's just always good against every deck. And the inertia one can get people, like it can get people really bad, especially against Riptide, because their attack is higher and they want to play 5-card hands, so you just inertia them when they come in with their pump guy, and then they can't use that last card in hand, so it just goes away. It's super strong. The Blood Rot one is pretty mediocre.
Hard to
I
trigger.
think it's only in the Azura mirror is it really decent, and even then, you're not actually using the effect as much as I thought you would.
No, you're
Because you
often
don't
blocking with it earlier.
Yeah, and you just don't have enough good swap targets to get it off very often, and then it's very like they had the swap into a 6 power. I drew it on that exact turn. It's like I don't like cards like that.
Yep. No, I agree. I mean, it's also great for Ranger into Assassins to a degree,
Yeah.
but I mean, I think I agree. Frailty was the one that overperformed massively, and Inertia was also really like the reason that Inertia tokens were a lot better than I thought is because playing out your hands is actually quite difficult in this format, especially in Assassin mirrors. There's a lot of like cat and mouse on blocking and stuff like that, and arsenaling once someone blocks a Spider's Bite, for instance, they don't get value out of their 3 block on your attack. So the Inertia was just like a lot better than I thought it was going to be, to be honest.
Yeah, I kind of like sitting on defensive cards in Arsenal until I really need to use them. And so, like, I didn't have much success with the Post Malone card. It kind of got stuck a little bit because they wouldn't pressure me very much, and then I would just have the defense rex in Arsenal, and I'd have it in my hand. It's like, I guess I'll pitch it for later, but it's just not very efficient use of my cards.
Yeah, I felt the same. I mean, what actually the better ones were like, I was finding just blue and yellow good for like late. Like the red one was awkward. I was often finding it really awkward, but the yellow and blues where I was pitching felt a lot better.
Yeah, and then late game they have to block with a card or they die.
Yep, it's just such a good trade late.
Through.
Right, let's talk about I guess some of these cards from the weekend, like cards that maybe overperformed, underperformed for us. Why don't we talk about some of the cards that we think are maybe flying a bit under the radar in this format? Maybe cards that if you're heading to skirmish season coming up, the cards that you should maybe paying a bit more attention to, giving a bit more respect to. Have you got something you want to kind of throw out first, Nick?
I don't think it's under. I think maybe a couple of people. I never saw even one, so they got cast against me. I call it chicken pox. Chicken pox is when they give you a token, you give them the same token and then repeat. It's a 0 for 4.
Yeah, I think it's called
So
infectious host, I think.
yeah. Cool. So chicken pox, freaking, it's just so good as it just is a 0 for 4 and has a bonus effect on it. Someone dropped that against me when I gave him a frailty token. I was just like, oh Jesus Christmas. Oh God, how am I gonna deal with this one? Now my turn is just weak and I just lost tempo.
I saw someone cast it and give their opponent 2 tokens. It was a blood rot and a frailty, and I was like, oh, that's really good.
Yeah, that card is super good. Another card I like is Hurl. It's a rare, but every color of Hurl is amazing. Like the blue one's the best one, but the fact that the red's just a 0 for 3 go again is just where I kind of want to be. And then it also just has the late game power if you draw it late of the. All right, you're on 1 less health in the late game because I ping you for damage that you can't stop unless you have the Seeker's equipment, and that's just very underrated. Especially since I had to play around flick knives. I know the power of dealing 1 damage from destroying a dagger.
It's not bad.
Very good.
It's not bad. I think from my side, I mean, we can just kind of go back and forth. There's a few cards, but I mean, one of the cards that really overperformed, and I think people were underutilizing, and if they opened multiple arm slots, were often kind of prioritizing as the least important. They were playing Blade Break over this, but Fisticuffs, like, I think this. So Fisticuffs is the attack reaction that gives +1, and I had someone say to me that, oh, I don't have any things that care about attack reactions. Like none of the cards that say if you've activated an attack reaction. I was like, and then I looked through their deck and they had cards like they had like on hit effects and they had like toxicity in their deck, and I was like, I think you should be playing Fisticuffs. That card, that just the threat of activation is one part is huge, but also it's just a damage at some point in the game. It's actually way more vital than I thought. So it's actually the 1 damage and paying 2 for it. It's not that big deal, and sometimes it can be worth like 2, 3, 4 damage.
Especially when you just go like pitch blue, cast the death touch from Arsenal, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, if you block 6, then yeah. If you block 7, it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to use Fisticuffs then. And it's just like, oh, when then you're in a rock and hard place. And then there's also spots where it's like, you just pitch for a dagger, and then you come with like a 0 for 4, and then you just have the bare bone whatever the tunic's called.
3-bear tunic, yeah.
Yeah, that, and that's a sick combination. Those 2 cards together. They don't block, but man, do they threaten so much, onboard damage just being there when you have no cards in hand.
What about overrated cards? What about cards that you think people were sort of a bit too high on? Things that people were like, oh, I didn't open X, and that means my pool sucks, or people were like, I opened X amount of these, and it makes my pool real good. And obviously, don't say Death Touch because that card is busted.
Yeah, I'm not going to complain about that one. I won because I pulled a couple of those in each of my things, which are very fortunate of me. But the card I hate is Rabble. Only one person hit up red off Rabble, and every other time it was a blue, and I'm like, all right. Oh no. And it was just never impactful. Another card that I didn't like was the Post Malone. It's just hard to get that into Arsenal if you're not playing Riptide and you want to just sit on a good card in your Arsenal. It just gets stuck in your hand, and the red one doesn't pitch for anything. And if you don't have like if they're on the back foot, they can just get back in the game because you just can't use it, and you just have a card in your Arsenal, and you're just left with extra cards at the end. Super underwhelming, I found.
Yeah, and even like people were like, oh, but you like Azuri the red one. And I was like, okay, you Azuri the red one. You've put that you've used a stealth card which you could have used for something potentially more impactful. I blocked with maybe your opponent blocked with 1 card. You leak 1 damage plus give them a blood rot, which they potentially have the option to pay for still. So you played 2 for 6 at best, and sometimes worse. I agree. The red one I thought was going to be a lot better, but your Arsenal is just really, really valuable as assassin. I did find in Riptide it was a lot better though, but still could sometimes be awkward because you wanted to, prioritize for an arrow. Although you could pitch the red one a bit easier in Riptide as well, which is nice.
Oh yeah, and another card I don't like are the attack reacts. They give +3. And they cost 1, and they give you the 1 of each token.
Oh
no, they give you the 1 of it. Oh, that one too. That one's terrible. That one's just awful. I don't think anyone underrated that. I don't think anyone overrated that one.
You're talking about the spike with, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
People overrated those. I wasn't a fan of those when people cast them against me. Honestly,
often it's really telegraphed because of the way that you have to, because they cost 1, which is actually like an awkward cost to put onto an attack.
Yeah.
But one thing I will say about them is they do defend 3, and that is huge. And
Yes.
sometimes they, that blood rot, even the frailty, like the frailty one, could be huge when your opponent's trying to swing a big turn, starting with a dagger or something. It could be worth
Yeah.
a 1 for 5, which is really big. But it's not. I think it's a lot better in
It,
Azuri when you can disguise it as an attack potentially.
yeah, you're gonna snap it and play it because it's not an attack action. It blocks 3, so it gets around Spider's Bite. But it's just when you're on offense, don't get greedy
And try
with
and keep
it
it.
because yes, do not try and keep it and try and resolve it because your opponent's definitely holding reacts. They definitely can have Blood Rot 1 and blow you out. It's good to have as a defensive card more than anything, I think. But yeah, that short and sharp. Oh god. Ugh, take a brother. Man, oh, awful.
Yeah, that card really underperformed for me. I was even the red one. It's like so awkward. You're like, oh, play it on a dagger, and so I'm paying 3 resources for 4 damage and 2 cards. Like, yeah, not really where I want to be. I think I agree with you on Ravenous. I think like I had a couple of reds in my pool on Sunday, and they did some work. But it's the problem is like the trying to understand when you should play them. And they're just often, if you're like, okay, my average is probably a yellow in this deck, so my average is probably 3 attack. Is that really what I want at a 2 defense? Even if it does have go again, yes, it does help you play your hand, which is really important, but sometimes it comes up for 2. I think it's a lot better, again, in Riptide. It helps you activate that hero ability, but yeah, it was a bit more underwhelming in just overall, actually, like when I saw people play it, when I played it. And my last one was just, I want to say Brush Off. I think Brush Off was like both a card that was a bit underrated, mostly by me, and a card that I think was overrated by other people. And I think I'm somewhere in the middle. I think that card's good, but I
Yeah, it's
destroyed
reasonable.
so many people playing Brush Off and then getting crushed because I then boosted my power or something.
Yeah. But it also is just another react as well, which Katsu in drafts will use, right? So
Sure.
I think it's another card underrated. There's a small application, but hey, listen, the Peter Pan shoes.
The Fleetfoot
The
sandals. Yeah.
yes, I actually have a tab open. I should just scroll down
Nah,
and
nah,
just
everyone's
rank all
loving
the cards.
your names for these. It's fine.
Um, that like in the late game when you come in for 1 with an assassin attack and you're like baiting a Azuri effect and they block you out, it's like, okay, well, I'll just give it go again and come with another 1 attack. And then it's just huge in the late game on in those situations. Like it's small, but like it's like people were like pissed off that they pulled it. It's like it's reasonable. Like it's not fantastic, but it's not mono unplayably bad. So I'd say it's still underrated in the late game scenarios.
Yeah, I'd 1,000 times rather open the Seeker's boots, but there are scenarios where that card is useful.
Yes, I just wanted to give a shout out
Yeah, I think it's a
to
fair
that card.
shout. All right, let's rattle through some tips for gameplay in this format. Try and give as much sort of our knowledge that we kind of learned over the weekend as possible. First question, so I'm just going to rattle through some questions. We'll kind of both tackle some of these and try and give some, like I say, some advice on this. First versus second in this format. What do you think is correct?
Second in an Assassin Mirror, first into Riptide, and I don't know the other matchups. I will say though, when you go first into Riptide, don't let them trigger their traps, because then they just get to have a 5 card hand for no reason, and that's a bad idea.
Yeah, and so the reason for first into those is because probably more of a fatigue matchup, so try and take some of their cards by them blocking, and then I guess on the flip side of that, Assassin, actually now that people are all on the pile matchups, it's not really that fatigue, it's actually the tempo going second now that people are building the decks a bit more quickly is more important.
Yes, absolutely. Actually having the threatening spider bites is pretty big.
Yeah, and actually it's actually better, I think, going second if you have good threat density because you're offering the first point of damage with threat density. So you can actually, again, back to fatigue by damage, forcing your opponent to start having to make some decisions as opposed to maybe just throwing away their worst cards.
Yeah,
Classic.
I think Arachne would go second into Riptide actually,
Yeah, I think that's
because
right.
yeah,
Because you can utilize your hand better.
Yes, yeah, a lot better.
Yeah, and that's one of the tough things about going second. Sometimes you can't utilize your hand, and that's why I think with the margins with fatigue going first winds up being on the net better. Okay. Does pitching or pitch stacking or pitching for second cycle matter, and to what degree does it matter versus just taking cards from your opponent in first cycle?
I think it's huge. I did it all the time. So the best things I like to pitch is the blue. So even just a blue threat, like a blue cut down to size or a blue wreak havoc,
Flitch the blue tail.
or yeah, those cards. That card as well in that deck. That's not like a pitch stacking card because
No.
it's just like a strong late game card. But like, if I can pitch like a blue dominate guy with a blue bat, threat to come in that comes in for 4, that's really nice. So that's what I was trying to do in the late game. And if my hand was like kind of weak, I would just like pitch a react, pitch like Razor's Edge or something into the later game where it's more valuable.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think it's definitely relevant. Like what you pitch, I go back to that concept of kind of like mindfully pitching. Like you want to be aware of the kind of cards you're pitching. You don't want to make your pitch deck too awkward because you are in a lot of matchups in this format going to get back to second cycle. I think actually we're like really specific pitch stacks matter more as in Riptide, which you talked about at the start of this kind of pod about playing Riptide versus playing an Assassin versus a Ninja, for instance, is like you will have to set up some like arrow plus pump, some good sort of evasion in the late game, which I think is a lot more important in Riptide as opposed to maybe the Assassins. It's just about sort of like threat density and having a win condition at the end. Because you can actually you cannot have a win condition as Assassin. You can actually just like run out of ways to win the game.
Yeah, definitely. So your blues are really important. Now that we're talking about switching and using Zuri's effect, the most underrated card, I pulled it up because the name up
Not
is
gonna
dreaming. It's literally it's like trippy as it looks trippy as. It's called Destructive Deliberation. When this hits a hero, create a Ponder token and attacks for 5. The red one of that is ridiculous. Like, that card can just be Lava Burst because it replaces the card that you pitch to cast it, or the card that you put on the bottom. Oh, I got people so many times with that card, and it just won games. I just wanted to bring that up as an underrated card. That card was one of the best cards for me all weekend.
If you explain that card to me, and then like you did, and asked me the name, that's literally the one card I think in the set that I cannot for the life of me remember the name of. But I agree that I was really underwhelmed by the yellow one because of just some breakpoint things in this game. But the red one was just like so impactful, and the 5 power, and like you say, switching with Zuri, playing it, like it, just if they don't block it, they're just in so much trouble. And sometimes that means they have to 3-card block it, which is.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if they know that that you have it in your deck in the late game. Oh,
yeah. Do you want to
hit him with the Peter Pan shoes? Going to Neverland, baby.
Do you have a nickname for Destructive Deliberation?
I only just thought about it now, but it's pretty trippy. It's a trippy card.
Trippy card.
All I can think of is like different kinds of drug names that I feel when So I'm not gonna give it a nickname.
All right, we'll leave that one.
Podcast.
Do you want to give any tips on fatiguing by damage? Like, what are the ways that you make sure that you kind of get, I'm going to call it card economy, like get better card economy than your opponent to ensure that you are not the one that gets fatigued by damage effectively?
It's so hard to explain. Yeah. As I said, it's such a balance. Like you have Thanos there with his little thing that balances all things should be. It's very hard to explain it. I probably couldn't do it justice, to be honest. It's just playing a lot of guards decks like Guardian, it just kind of comes to you when you play those kinds of decks a lot. But just use the most cards efficiently as possible. Also, don't use your threats blindly because like you don't know what cards they've got in their deck. Like if you come in with a Destructive Deliberation and they just Peace of Mind you, that's not good. So like you really want to play patiently. You don't want to overblock, but you also don't want to underblock. Just use the cards as best as you possibly can. I try not to block with reds at all if you can help it, because they're just going to force the most cards out of the opponent. The best cards to save late game is Feisty Locals. Their card's so good. Because when they're on 3, they're blocking with cards. Yeah. So stuff like that for the late game is very good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd say that is a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's really hard. I agree. It's such a concept where I think it comes a bit more naturally as you play and as things start to evolve. And sometimes it's about taking a little bit of damage here so that you can utilize a card in a slightly more efficient way on offense to then potentially take a really important card from your opponent. It can be about saving this defense reaction because you know there's a more important card to come, or you feel that you can get more value out of it. Sometimes you feel like your arsenal's too important. It's going to depend on the deck. It's going to depend on what your opponent's playing. It's going to depend on your play style as well. Like me and Nick were talking, we were both talking about this kind of concept of fatigue by damage, and we're both seeing it happen a lot in our games, both playing Assassin. But I was saying after me and Nick played, I felt that I was playing a lot more aggressively than Nick. Nick's a lot more patient player, played a lot more Guardian, and understand this concept a lot better than me, I think. And I was trying to do this by being a lot more aggressive. So Nick was saying, my games, some of my games haven't been particularly close on a life total standpoint, but, the decks are lower, where I was saying my games have been a lot closer on life total standpoint, but I just have so much more card economy in my deck than my opponent. So there's also, based on the way you play, I think this concept will change. And I'm sure we'll have more to say on this concept, I think, in the future, but this format's still evolving. It's not easy, but I think some of the tips Nick gave there, like the biggest one, I think, is just like, if you can, don't defend with your reds. Those are so important for winning games.
Yeah, especially in sealed, where you don't have a choice of what reds you have.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk a little bit about how to play turn cycles. Do you have any kind of tips for, I guess, just defending Spider's Bites, not defending Spider's Bites? Like, how do you kind of utilize? Is there any kind of tips you have there?
It really depends on your hands versus the opponent's hands. I'm not really going to defend the first one if they have a full hand, because they're very likely just going to attack with the other Spider's Bite that I can just block and negate the first one, and then they're just using 4 resources to attack for 2 damage, and I just lost a card. Right, I lost 1 card from hand, which was probably the worst card in my hand, so I'm up in that exchange. So if they're attacking, it depends on my hand structure. Like, if I have a defense react, that's why it's so important to have attacks that block for 3 but aren't attack actions, because it gives you so much more agency in what you can and can't block with. It's very likely that you have to block the Spider's Bite if you have a bunch of block 2 attack actions, because then you're just going to you could just possibly get destroyed. So very important to have things like Come to Fight. If you're lucky, you can get Burden of the Majestic. Play that too. All the reactions are very good. The attack reacts that block 3 are very good, just because they're not attack actions. So definitely they influence whether you do or don't block the Spider's Bite.
Yep. Good advice. Again, it depends.
Yeah, it's so contextual.
Yeah.
The most important thing is if you have 4 if you have 4 attack actions that block 2, you probably have to block Spider's Bite. If they have 5 cards, you probably don't have to, because they're definitely going to be more than likely going to be forced into attacking with the second Spider's Bite. So you just block with one of your block 2 attack reacts for 1, or attack actions for 1.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I said, if you have non-attacks in your hand or a defense react, who cares? Spider's Bite doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
So whatever, you're fine. Just to not block it.
Yep, the power of non-attack actions, reactions, defense reactions in this format is great. I guess, is there anything else you want to say about sealed? One thing I want to say is, me and Nick did play 3 sealed pools each. We kind of a bit short on time. We're going to talk a bit about draft in this pod and kind of our first thoughts on draft, so we won't go over any of our sealed pools from the weekend. But if you do want to see a video of me and Nick putting together a sealed pool, and Nick sort of guiding you through how he looks at building sealed in Outsiders, then check out the video that we're just going to pop up alongside with this pod on Arsenal Pass, and you can see Nick talk through, along with myself, what, putting together a sealed pool, basically all the things that he looks at, and how to get the most out of a sealed pool. But yeah, Nick, throw it over to you. Anything else you want to say about sealed before we move on to some first thoughts on draft?
Yes, play your skirmish season, play your sealed skirmishes, and have an absolute banger of a time. That's my best advice.
There we go. All right, next up, we're going to move through to first look at Outsiders draft, and something that's going to start. It's going to be a feature on this podcast, on limited time only, Nick, and you're going to be the first person to do it. Is we are going to do pack 1, pick 1 with Nick Butcher. So I'm going to crack a pack right now, and we're going to cut to that, and you're going to see Nick deciding what card to take. All right, pack 1, pick 1 with Nick Butcher. Nick has the pack here. I cracked it, so we could go straight into it. It's up on screen now. Nick, talk us through your kind of thoughts on this pack.
So, because I think staying open is very important in this format, as I think a lot of people have discussed. I wanted to look at the class cards, and I think I kind of do want to memorize what the cards are if I can. So if I can see that there's a Widowmaker and a red black heel kick, which is probably going to get taken later. I don't think they influence my decision whether I'm playing Ninja or Ranger, so I don't think they're that impactful. Sedate's another also kind of just average red. I do want to stay open. I think Destructive Deliberation is a fantastic card. I think it's very, very good. I think Seeker Sword's also a very good card. What's it compete with in the head slot? I don't think it competes with. Really?
It's
very important.
It's all the assassin masks. It's the mask of many faces, and it's the ranger head as well. So it has the most competition in the head slot. I personally think it's the weakest of the seekers.
Okay, I found the ninja. I find the masks that have blade break to just be blade break. So
many faces, I think, is going to be very good.
Many faces is very good. Yes, I agree with that. my first inkling is to take Destructive Deliberation. I think that card's just fantastic. Come to Fight's also very good, but it's blue. I don't think I want to commit to it as a first pick, even though it's a non-attack action blue block 3. I want to take a decent generic red. I think Destructive Deliberation is super underrated. I'm probably just taking that. I think it's a very good card in nearly every class because Kadachi comes in for 1 and Destructive Deliberation comes in for 5. That's a 2 for 6 cards. They have to block with multiple cards, and as we said, there's a lot of block 2s in this format that they have to use, and a lot of the good block 3s are cards that people want to keep.
Mm-hmm.
So
yep, like your red sedates and your Widowmakers and things like that. Just one card I want to ask you about. I feel the same. I think Destructive Deliberation might be the best card in the pack, or at least the best sort of first pick, like you say. What about Infectious Host? You spoke really highly of that card. Your chickenpox cards, you like to say before. Is it because this is yellow, this isn't really a consideration, or is it a consideration but it's just not as good as something like Destructive Deliberation?
Nah, yellow. I just can't. I couldn't take. I just couldn't in my soul take yellow as the first pick that blocks 2. I couldn't do it. I think I'd rather just force a class at that point.
Yeah, take something like the Widowmaker or the Sedate.
Yeah. The red one though. The red one I'd snap over anything else.
For sure. Right, let's end this pod, this limited time only episode 2, with some first thoughts on Outsiders Draft. Thank you for playing Pack 1 Pick 1, by the way, as well. Going to be an ongoing feature on limited time only, and Nick, you were the first Pack 1 Pick 1. So, what do you think is going to happen in Outsiders Draft? And what I want to ask you first is, how do you think people will draft?
I think people will force Arachne early because it's unpunishing just to take a Sedate there and just say, okay, well, it's a red go again attack that comes in for 3 and blocks for 3. I don't think that's very strong. I think your threat density is very low if you do that. A lot of things are going to be able to just beat you up if you do that with Arachne. So, but I think people are going to go with that first. I also think a lot of people who force Ninja in Uprising will force Ninja again in this set, just because I think a lot of people are unsure how well Ninja will go if you stay open, and how open can you be to Benji / Katsu. It's very interesting, right? So I think early format, I think it's fine to force a class because it's just the best way to learn what cards are good and bad. But I think people will end up staying open in pack 1. And when I say staying open, I mean like they'll have their dual class cards. So they'll in pack 1 they'll be in Ranger / Assassin or Ninja / Ranger. Or I don't think there is. I don't know.
There's not a third. Yeah, it's just okay. the 2 assassin splits. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think people will stay open in that way. And then in pack 2, people will choose a class, and then who knows, maybe even in pack 3, that's when they'll decide which of their 2 class heroes they want to go into based off what they've gotten in the draft already. So it's super interesting. You could not even be on your hero until pack 3 or late pack 2.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's definitely how it's going to start. I think people are not really going to know what archetypes look like, so they're just going to know what maybe good looks like in terms of just what good cards look like, and that's going to lean people to getting into a class, maybe staying somewhat open, but then, getting into a class, finding the best cards, taking just good red cards. But I think once we get down the road and we start to find archetypes, it's going to be really interesting, because Benji is one that stands out to me. Benji gets really rewarded for some of these yellow on-hit effects that are going to be a lot lower priority for Akatsu, for instance, even in the generic slot, lower for decks that potentially want that card. So that is something that I think is going to be interesting. Riptide versus Azalea, that I think that feels quite different to me in drafts. So it's going to be interesting to see how people... I think the heroes that people are going to avoid to start with is Benji, Azalea, Riptide. I think those would be the least drafted of the 6, is my kind of feeling, especially for week 1, week 2.
Potentially, I think people are going to prioritize traps though, and I think traps, people can get a lot of traps and play into
Riptide.
A lot of Riptide decks. I think just looking at Spire sniping, I think Azalea is a lot better if you can get a lot of Spire snipings, because you are able to just consistently get dominated attacks off, and then you have arrows in the late game. So Spire sniping is a very, like, in this pack, if a pack was coming to me later on, I'd choose Spire sniping over Widowmaker, I'm pretty sure, just because it makes my more consistent Azalea deck better. So
yeah, you just load that, and then you find, you get to put top 2 cards of your deck back in any order and put that arrow dominated, and just, I think you're right. I think that card's going to be... I was touting the blue as a really important card for Azalea, one that you can
absolutely.
Pitch early and then set up for your... You don't have to pitch deck perfectly. You can actually just find the cards late game, which is pretty important.
Yeah, I think that card in every color is just going to be very, very early pick if people are, especially pack 2 and 3, where people are deciding which range they want to go into.
Yep. And the red one's great. It's just like, okay, well, I'll load this, and if maybe I'll find a dominant arrow or not, I'll just come in for 5. Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's still really good.
Yeah.
What are you thinking? Like, is there something that you're going to favor in particular? Are you going to, you talked about staying open when you're drafting that? Are you just going to see how things come? Or is there something that you kind of have your eye on from like a thing that you think is going to be more powerful than maybe other sort of archetypes or heroes?
I think Katsu will be the most powerful, but I think it's too risky to force it because you just don't know, and you can get screwed over really badly. So I'm just going to stay open from the start and just take things as they go. And if you get bad drafts at the start, whatever, take losses. That's how you learn. Stay open, because it's your early picks. If you can record your drafts and like figure out what you picked early and whether you'd pick that again, that's a huge learning experience.
Yeah, fair. I mean, some people might want to win immediately, Nick. So maybe we can give them a little advice. Well, I want to ask you about Katsu. Why do you think Katsu is potentially the most powerful thing you can be doing in this draft, although maybe risky as well, like you say?
Yeah, it's just if you can get your twin twisters early, if you can get head jab early, you get surging strike early, and then all of a sudden you're getting past descendant gust wave, or you get bonds, and then you can get into the descendant gust wave. You don't even need surging strike, or you can get those be like waters.
Mm-hmm.
You can see I know the names of all of these cards because you know what I've been playing. That's where you get a very high ceiling deck where you could just instantly win a draft because you just have the best red combinations because you forced it early and no one else went into it. That's the best, the highest ceiling deck. But I think Uzuri is very consistent because I think the strong early picks are the 2 for 6s, the Destructed Deliberation, and so like Uzuri really makes use of those cards, especially because things like the blue or the yellow stealth cards are probably going to get potentially wheeled, maybe like a pick 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can invest in the 2 for 6s, and then later in the draft you can start taking those late pick blue and yellow stealth cards that the others that the what's his other guy Arachne doesn't
Right.
want, then you're going to also have a very powerful deck, which is why staying open is pretty important as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
I mean, I had this on my questions, but can you stay open in this draft? You think you can because you think it's important.
Absolutely.
How open can you stay? Like, how late do you think you can stay open?
I think you can stay open until the end of pack 1. I think you can stay open in 2 classes because, as you can see in this pack alone, you have Destructive Deliberation as a first pick. If that gets taken early, you can take a Come to Fight or a Seeker's Hood. You even have Virulent Touch, which I think is a fine blue, especially because it's a 0. It's I guess a 0 cost doesn't matter, but like it's an Assassin/Ranger blue, which is great in the later game. Infectious Host is still fine, and then then you can start just taking. At that point, it's pick 5.
I mean, Red Toxicity is still in the pack, which might just be an Azalea card, but
Yeah. It is. Yeah, you can stay open with that card as well.
Mm-hmm.
It is also could be decent in something like Uzuri in drafts if you have a lot more cards to swap in and out.
Yeah.
But yeah, in this pack alone, you could be open in 2 classes up to pick 6. So
yeah,
and then you don't even know what hero you're going to play at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can also, I mean, I'm someone who's not afraid to hedge picks. Like, I'm not committed to playing my first pick. I think that's something that I know I think with the strength of this pack, there's nothing in the classes that's really outstanding. Like there's no, there's like a red sedate, right? A red Widowmaker. These cards aren't particularly exciting, but if there was something like, a red Withering Shot, for instance, like that might entice me to maybe hedge the Ranger card a bit more. And then if I don't end up playing it, that's fine. I'm not married to my first pick. Just because I first pick something doesn't mean I'm immediately in that class. It just means that I think it's the best card in the pack overwhelmingly, and I want it. And if I play it, I play it.
Yeah, and that's what's the thing about staying open too. That's why I want to kind of memorize my pack 1, just so I know what's coming back to me and what's been taken, and that gives me a lot of information coming into pick 9, which is with 5 cards left in the pack. Like if there's still a Spire Sniping still in the pack in pick 9. You're very enticed to go into an Azalea deck, right? Because that's a pretty high priority card for that hero.
Yep. What do you think about this idea of, if I use Uprising, for example, packs were a lot easier to map in terms of the fact that distribution of the pack was a lot more set. So you basically knew what you were going to get because of the, what is it? What's what I'm looking for? What are the red only cards called? Oh my goodness, it's been so long since I played Uprising.
Iconic.
Yeah, the Draconic cards, and so you knew Ice Draconic, you knew the structure of the pack was a lot more set as opposed to this, which is a lot more like Welcome to Wraith, where there's a guidelines, there's a general structure of 9 to 10 common cards that can be 2 to 4 generics, it can be 1 of a class card, it can be 3 of a class card, you can have 1 rare, you can have 3 rares. So do you think it's going to be more important that you check the wheel, like get signals from the wheel, as opposed to get signals from cards missing from packs, effectively, like you did in Uprising?
Yeah, I think the wheel is pretty important. Especially, I think the pack distribution is 2 Ranger, 2 Ninja, and then it's either 2 Assassin, 3 generic, or 1 Assassin, 4 generic. I think that's what people will figure it out quickly, right? When they start opening their packs and doing drafts and figuring all that out.
I posted on Twitter because I'd heard of people having 1 class card in their packs. So I'm not certain. So at the time of recording, we're not 100% sure of what the pack distribution exactly is.
Yeah, because this one's 2 Ninja, 2 Ranger, 4 generic, 1 Assassin.
Yeah, there's 1 hybrid card. So I definitely know the back of the pack is...
1 dual class, 1 dual class, 1 equipment, 1 rare, 1 majestic/rare, 1 foil,
Yes, but there is you can also just get 1 rare in the pack as well. Confirmed.
Oh, really?
Confirmed by Brian Gottlieb, designer of the set, is that there are packs that have, and I saw it, I don't think I have one personally, but I saw it across from me. Someone opened a 1 rare pack, but then they opened a 3 rare pack as well. So,
Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
Because the rares are very powerful in this set. Which is great.
That's why I think they've done it, to be honest. It's because
in Uprising, it's a rare was taken up. It's Fighting Spirit. That's it.
Wow.
Or a dragon.
Ice Vein, maybe.
That's a common.
Never mind. Played like a rare, didn't it?
Yep. Yeah. I'm excited. This is going to be fun then. That's interesting that you don't know exactly what's happening.
Yeah. My feeling is that yes, you can stay open, and staying open is going to be good because I think the most information you're going to gather is off the wheel. It's not off of signals being sent your way because pack distribution is not as set as it was in Uprising. So it's going to be really interesting to find out. I can't wait to get in some drafts. Me and Nick are going to be sitting down at some point this weekend once the set's released and doing a couple of drafts, I'm sure.
I think definitely when the set comes out.
Also,
I want to learn about this set. One final thing is that in Uprising, we found a lot of people found that Brothers in Arms and Blaze Headlong were like sort of stuck in in the same pack a lot of the time. So if you got past the Brothers in Arms pick 2, you probably have to assume that if it's a generic or a draconic that's been taken, that Blaze Headlong was taken the first pick. So that I don't know if that's going to happen with this set, but it's definitely is something to think about because that did happen in Uprising.
Yeah, there's a print run link where the cards were always next to each other in a print run. Yeah, cool. Okay, let's just finish off this. We've talked a bit about draft. We've given our tips on sealed. Hopefully those really help people heading to skirmish and kind of just our recap from pre-release. Pack on pick ones. We played pack on pick one. Why don't you throw some cards our way? Cards that you're on the lookout for. Pack on pick one. Maybe you talked about staying really open. You like the idea of staying open. So what are some cards maybe pack on pick one that you're prioritizing high? They're going to keep you open.
I'll play on hard mode and not pick Death Touch because that's the obvious pick on pack one. I'm going to scroll through the list. I'm very professional like that.
Sure.
Obviously, Destructive Liberation is a great pick one pack one card. I think Come to Fight Red's also a pretty strong pick one pack one card because it does block for 3 and it is +3, so it's great in Ranger. It's also just very good in everything, to be honest. The 2 for 6s are also very good. Cut down to size is a great common. Humbles are rare, but yes, that is very good. Wreck Havoc is all of them are good. They're just on rate cards. Like they just come in for 6, and they help with a lot of decks. Like Ninja will love that card. Ranger loves that card just because it is just an on rate card, and Assassin loves that card too because you just swap it in. So they're very good pick one pack one cards. I don't. The equipment is.
I love the equipment. That's the one I was going to say. I think 3-bid Tunic is top of the list for me with Death Touch and cards like that. Yeah.
If Silken Geese in my pick one, I might just take it and hedge that I'm not going to get a Threadbare Tunic. It's sort of the same as the Upright. What's the Uprising card that everyone snapped in?
Sash of Sandakai.
Yeah, Sash of Sandakai.
That's very similar, yeah.
Yeah. That so I might just take a Silken Gi as my pick one pack one. I also like prioritizing, maybe not pick one, but the Seeker's equipment, especially the Seeker's legs.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The Seeker's arms are very good as well.
Yes.
because that means my peace of mind's even in yellow, pretty decent mid to late game picks that really will help my deck and synergize with the equipment I've taken already. So I might look to taking an early pick Seeker's equipment. Even Fisticuffs is very good. I just think equipment in this set is very good to take, especially because a lot of them are the dual class ones.
Yep, I feel the same. I might just add some cards. I mean, I think like Red Withering Shot is a card that stood out to me all weekend from the Rangers that just had so much impact.
Which one's that?
That's the Frailty token. So
Oh yeah,
it comes
that
in for
one's good.
5, but if it has an aim counter at 6, and it gives a Frailty token, Frailty token on hit. I think that, we talked about 3-Bear Tunic. I think Seeker's Legs, those, as you talked about, are really important cards. Some other like class cards I might just shout out is, I know you talked about Hurl early on, and it's at rare.
Yeah.
I think some cards that I'm looking to avoid are like the attack reactions in particular. I kind of agree with you. I don't think they're particularly great first picks, although at least no, they're ranger. The good ones are assassins. Sorry, so I don't even particularly want to take those. I'd be more like Red Surging Strike is a card I would definitely consider first picking. In a weaker pack. But yeah, I think like we've kind of nailed some of the most important cards. I'm not that keen on like Red Sneak Attack or even Yellow Sneak Attack, like are good cards, but I'm not that keen on taking a lot of the red stealth cards first pick. Like maybe Infect or Wither.
Yeah, even Prowl if you're going for Arachne in
Yeah.
red, but like yeah.
It's so bad and not Arachne though. Also average.
Seek Horizon. That was shit in Monarch. I love that card in this set. Seek Horizon's sick. I might take a Seek Horizon first pick. It's just always strong. And Snake, the Snake Boy.
Oh yeah, Springload. Yeah, good
Snake
shout.
Boy,
That card was as good as I thought it was going to be. So
yes, so many good cards.
So many good cards. All right, well, I can't wait to get drafting. Nick can't wait to get drafting. Want to say, Nick, a big thank you for coming and joining me on Limited Time Only. We had a great conversation on Seal. We talk a lot of Limited, to be honest. We talked a lot of Limited during Uprising, and you're someone that, probably the person I talked the most about Limited with, so it was cool to have you on and share some thoughts. So thanks for coming on.
Hey man, the pleasure was all mine. There's a reason I talk to you a lot as well. I love your thoughts. Cool guy.
And if people want to find you, you on Twitter?
Yeah, I am on Twitter. Don't follow me. Trust me. I'm just It's not. You're better off not following me. So at FabSchoolNick.
Yeah, your handle's down below your face. So unfortunately, even if you didn't want people to follow you, they're going to follow you. So, and make sure you check out the video of me and Nick going through a seal pool on Arsenal Pass. Until next time, we'll see you in the next episode.